Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes or Death podcast. And we made it, episode 200. I can't believe it. Thank you so much for a wild ride so far and for indulging me all these years. And here is to 200 plus more episodes, I hope. And on today's episode, I am really excited to have a longtime friend of mine, Kerry Snow, on the podcast. Kerry recently came in second place at the East Texas Showdown in the women's category and was 10th overall. And what makes this year unique for Kerry is that she was riding the East Texas Showdown while undergoing chemotherapy for stage 2 breast cancer. Kerry is no stranger to the world of bikepacking and bikepack racing. In fact, she is one of the main people in my life that inspired me to get into bikepacking many years ago. She signed up for the Grand Gravel 500 in 2017, which was a local bikepacking race. And in 2018, she and I both signed up, and that was the first race I ever did. She came in well ahead of me. Let's see. In fact, she came in like about a day and a half before I did. In that edition of the Grand Gravel, she came in second place overall, right behind Indiana Schultz, who many of y'all will know. So she is a very strong rider, and she's been a personal inspiration and example for me and a longtime friend. So it was really great to have her on the podcast and share her story. This was her second year at the East Texas Showdown. Last year in 2024, she came in second place as well. And this year, she completed the East Texas Showdown in 1 day, 19 hours, and 4 minutes, which is just a incredible effort considering that she was undergoing chemotherapy and continues to be going under chemotherapy at this time. So it was really a great conversation. I really enjoyed catching up with her. The reality is even though we live in the same town, I haven't seen her much lately. People may or may not realize this, but Bikes or Death has completely taken over my life between raising kids and running this business. It hasn't left much free time. And so I actually haven't seen Kerry in a while, and it was really great to catch up and hear her story, and can't wait for you to hear it. Before we get into it, I do want to just offer a quick apology for the lack of podcasts that have been showing up in your feed lately. Without going into too much detail, I will say that life has just been really challenging lately. I was gearing up for ETS, and then right after ETS, I got COVID. And then I was heading out to Big Bend to do some work on the West Texas Showdown, and my car broke down on the way out there. And then it broke down again whenever I got back into town. And really, I think probably the larger issue that I've been dealing with is on the mental health side. May is Mental Health Month. I just learned that. And so in that vein, I decided that I would, speak candidly about the fact that I have been dealing with mental health issues for most of my life, as many of y'all will know, as it's something I'm not shy to talk about. And I've found that just lately, it's been particularly challenging. And it's been a real struggle, but I don't want this to be all doom and gloom. I actually just made the decision a few days ago to get back out on SSRIs and continue on my mental health journey with a little bit of help. About a year ago, I made the decision to get off of SSRIs. I had made a lot of lifestyle choices that I was hoping would negate the need for being on an SSRI. But after a year of being unmedicated, I think that I'm the type of person that could use a little bit of help in that department. And that's not a bad thing. I think that a lot of people probably can use medication and some people don't. And I think that at least for right now at this stage of my life, that's something that I need. And so I am continuing on my mental health journey. But I don't want to turn this into a therapy session, but I just wanted to give a little bit of context and color to what's been going on behind the scenes in my personal life, and also just extend my own thoughts to anybody else who is struggling with their mental health. Just know that you are not alone. And as my girlfriend always says, the best thing you can do is the next best thing. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I will encourage anybody else who's struggling with their mental health to just do the next best thing and get through it little by little. That's what they always say, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So anyway, thank you for indulging me with that. I did just want to add a little bit of context and an apology for there being such a scarcity of podcasts lately, but I'm not quitting, and I look forward to being in your podcasting feed very soon. All right, and now it is time to thank the people that made today's episode possible, starting with our latest batch of patrons. So this week, we would like to thank Stephen Flush, Joey Acuff, and Alexander Scully for signing up to be sustaining members of the Bikes or Death podcast. We really do appreciate you. And if you appreciate the work that we do over here at Bikes or Death and you would like to support the show, a great way to do that is over at patreon.com/Bikes or Death. And today's episode is also brought to us by my friends over at the Farther Bag Co. Whether you're strapping a bag to your bike for a weekend adventure or packing up for your daily commute, Farther Bag Co. has you covered. Their handmade small batch bags are built for adventure, made from water-resistant recycled materials, and come with a lifetime repair guarantee. Farther's bags have been featured on The Radavist, bikepacking.com, and Bike Gear Database, and much more. Their Psychic Medium handlebar bag is the perfect size for day trips, commuting, and everyday rides. And it's designed to live on your handlebars, so it's always ready for the journey ahead. To get 15% off your order, use code BAGSORDEATH at fartherbag.com. And like they say, go farther, let the good times roll. Again, to save 15% on your order, use code BAGSORDEATH at checkout when you visit fartherbag.com. And today's episode is also brought to us by the Texas Showdown series. Registration just opened yesterday for the Central Texas Showdown, and the Central Texas Showdown takes place in the iconic hill country of Texas. I often say that when people who live outside of Texas picture Texas, I think it's the Texas hill country that they're envisioning. It truly is just a remarkable and beautiful part of Texas, and I absolutely love this event. We have 4 route options, 2 competitive and 2 non-competitive route options. So starting off with the non-competitive rides, we have the Super Lowdown, which is 88 miles, and we have 1 designated group camp. And then from there, you can step up to the Lowdown, which is 173 miles with 2 designated group camps. And I really think that these are a great opportunity for people who are maybe going bikepacking for the first time, or just want to go ride their bike with a bunch of cool people for the weekend. Or maybe you're bike pack racing curious and you want to see what the vibes are all about. These routes are great introductions to the sport of bike pack racing, or just a great opportunity to go ride your damn bike with some cool people. Moving on to the competitive options, we have the Slow Down, which is 293 miles. And from there, we move to the Bad Boy, the Central Texas Showdown route, which is now 501 miles, thanks to a new death loop that I just scouted and rode last week with my girlfriend. So the new death loop is 60 miles, a little bit deadlier, but it is a really sick loop that I'm really excited about. And I'm just really excited about Central Texas Showdown. Like I said, I love this event and I would love for you to join this. And I've never done this before, but it occurs to me that I'm always advertising for other companies and offering discount codes, but I have never offered a discount code for one of the Texas Showdown Series races. So for being a avid and loyal listener, I want to extend you a discount to the Central Texas Showdown. When you go to check out, use the code BikesOrDeath and you'll get $20 off your registration fee. So I hope to see a lot of y'all there. And if I may say so myself, it's a hell of a good time. So come ride your damn bike with us in the Texas Hill Country, and I will see you in October. All right, ching, 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 ching. The bills have been paid, and now it is time to get to my chat with Kerry Snow. But first, let's have my friend Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes or Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
I guess no better time to do one than when you just come off the bike, right?
Yeah, this is the best time to record a podcast right after you finish a bike ride. Kerry Snow, welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. Cheers.
Hey, Patrick.
What do you got there? 1877?
1877 mineral water with lime infused.
The HEB version of Topo Chico.
Yep. The cheap version of Topo Chico.
So we're out at Lake Bryan, our old stomping ground. Actually, I guess currently still our current stomping ground and our old stomping ground.
I think it's our old stomping grounds becoming back around and being our new stomping ground.
How's that? Do you not ride out here as much these days?
No, because we had the trails out in South College Station, which is 20 minutes from our house.
Yeah.
So going past A&M at rush hour traffic, getting out here is a 40-minute journey. So we kind of gave Lake Bryan a hiatus for a long time. But a lot of work's being done out here, and the trails are really good right now. So last couple of weeks we've been coming out here riding at Lake Bryan. So.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I actually just went out to, so Milliken is the other, for the audience, Milliken's the other local mountain bike trails that we have. So we're at Lake Bryan, which is one of our mountain bike trails, and we have Milliken, and that's basically those are our two.
Those are our options.
Those are our options. And I haven't been out to Milliken. I think it's been at least a year since I've been out to Milliken. And just because it's so far away, and Lake Bryan is just closer to where I live. So I come out here out of convenience mostly. And then, I just went this past, not 1 week ago, I was out there on Saturday and got to ride the trails, and it was really fun. It was this is a brand new experience. And not a lot has changed, but a little bit has changed. That the saddest part was on right at the beginning of phase one, that big dirt mound. They removed that for utilities, I guess.
They use the dirt, I think, to put some dirt work down, either for the roads or some construction that they're doing out there, which is new housing. So I think the last few times we've ridden out Milliken, we've only done phases 1, 2, and 3. So there's 4 phases out there, right?
Yeah.
5 phases, actually.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask if they still have 5. I was curious.
No idea. 5 is such a long way away from phase 4. So we haven't ridden out on phase 5 for years, but phase 4 got a little bit of a kind of tore up a little bit from some of the construction they're doing out there at Milliken. So phases 1, 2, and 3 are generally the kind of the more enjoyable phases of Milliken. So I think last time we was out there was probably a couple of months ago, but definitely out here at Lake Bryan. I will say the trails are a lot better right now out here than they are at Milliken. So that's why we've been coming out here.
Yeah. So you just finished up a ride, and
I did.
After
Super sweaty.
After this podcast, I'm going to go on a bike ride. My bike is sitting right over there.
Mm-hmm.
I mainly brought my bike over because I don't have a bike lock on my rack right now.
Okay.
And I didn't want it just sitting over there, but it adds to the ambience for sure.
Yep. I risked it and put my mountain bike on the back of the car, and it ain't locked. So let's hope for the best.
Well, it's probably okay.
I think it's fine, yeah.
And your husband will be back pretty soon to keep an eye on it. So I was thinking about it. This is episode 200, by the way. So
wow.
kind of a milestone. Pretty
That's
wild.
cool.
Yeah. Which is pretty crazy that I made it to 200 episodes. And in the first 199 episodes, I have yet to interview somebody who knew me before I became Bikes for Death or whatever, before Bikes for Death ever started.
So the original Patrick?
The original, the OG Patrick. You know Patrick before Patrick was known to everybody else.
I know Patrick is the real estate guy. Patrick is the mountain bike guy. Patrick is the I'm getting into bikepacking guy. And then Patrick that became Bikes or Death.
And you know the Patrick that lived at your house after my first divorce. So after my first divorce, you rented a room to my daughter and I. You and Christopher did.
Yep.
For what, like 6 months or something like that?
It was 6 months till you got your house, and you got yourself on your feet.
Yeah. I always appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah, that's hey, everybody needs help sometimes. So
yeah. Yeah, and it worked out really well, and y'all were so sweet to Lila, and it really did, like, kind of just, we needed an opportunity to kind of bridge the gap, and also, like, let the dust settle on, like, the divorce, and, there's just a lot of stuff going on. So, you know me maybe better than any guest I've ever had on the podcast before. So, if there's any embarrassing stories that you think of, you're welcome to call me out on them. Is there anything embarrassing that people need to know?
I don't think so. No, I think the only thing we've had some great times on bikes. I remember the first time we went for an overnighter at, it's out in Grimes County. It was me, you, and your ex-wife. The other ex-wife. Yeah,
the other ex-wife, the second ex-wife.
And it was
you've known them all.
It was your guys' first time. And I just remember on day 2, I rode home by myself because you guys had got like heat stress.
Yeah.
And ended up getting a ride. I think it was from like Beat Eyes or something.
At that Subway?
At the Subway, yeah. You guys got a ride home because it was so hot. And I said, hey, I'm going to ride home. And I just always remember, like, man, the suckers got in the car and I was riding down, I think it was County Road 190, and I had this pounding headache because of the heat. And I was like, man, I should have got in the car with you guys. But I was like, no, I'm going to keep riding. And I think that was your actual first experience of going bikepacking.
I think that was my second.
Overnight, yeah.
I think that was my second one.
Yeah.
The first one, now I'm struggling to remember. I have a terrible memory. But the first one I did was with Kerry, and we rode from home out to the that was definitely just, so my ex-wife's name is Kerry, your name is Kerry, so that could get confusing. But the other Kerry, we rode out to, our goal was Stubblefield, and we didn't make it.
That was it, Stubblefield, yeah.
Yeah. And then we basically just got into like the edge of the forest there, and it was like 65, 66 miles, something like that. So it was a good first day. And then you and I went on that, it was me, you, and Luke Conlon that did that longer ride training for the Grand Gravel 500.
Okay.
Do you remember that one?
I do not, no.
I'm pretty sure you were on that one.
I remember going with Luke Conlon on an overnight ride. It was supposed to be to I think it was Huntsville State Park or some Houston State Park. And it was like 169 miles or something. And we was training for the Grand Gravel. And we got there and the park was full. So we had nowhere to camp other than wild camp. And then Luke was like, oh, hell no, and called his wife. And she came and picked us up. I think it was at Sam Houston National Forest or it was at Huntsville State Park. We got picked up there and it was gone midnight. But we'd knocked out pretty much think about 150 miles that day training for that ride, but I don't remember the one with you, me, and Luke though.
Maybe I'm just, I could have swore I was like trying to remember back, but because we did one that was like 165 mile, it was in January, so Grand Gravel was in March, and we did like 165 mile overnighter. But I know that we did the Hotter Than Hell too, which isn't bikepacking.
No, yeah.
But do you remember what it was called? I was trying to. It's the Wichita something.
It's the Triple Threat.
The Triple Threat, not the Triple Crown. It's the
Triple Threat. It's the mountain bike race on a Friday.
Yeah.
It's the 100-mile road event on a Saturday, and then it's a half marathon trail run on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And I remember you came out to that. I think you and Kerry came out to that.
That was my second year. So the first year I just did the 100-mile road race. And then the second year, we all trained to do the triple threat. Is that what the triple threat. And that was an ass kicker. It was fine until the run, because it's a half marathon trail run, and I'm not a runner, and I trained for it. But I think the longest I ran leading up to that was 8 miles. That was my longest run. I was like, that's good enough.
Yeah.
But after a mountain bike race on day 5, 100-mile, and they call it Hotter Than Hell because it's in August in Texas.
It's triple digits.
It's usually with like heat index and the sun off the pavement. It's like 120. Yep. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the year that we did it was like 114. That was the heat off the asphalt, or the heat index.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the event itself. I think it's the event plus the heat on top of it that makes it really, really hard. I think the event itself is more than manageable. It's an endurance event, ultimately just over 3 days. But I think it's the heat that makes it really, really challenging.
Right.
Because it's 3 days in 100 degrees, like pushing your body for hours outside. And it just doesn't ever seem like it can cool down.
No.
Because even on a night, as you know, in Texas in August,
it's still in the 90s.
Heat saturation is still in the 90s.
And the humidity.
You're camping outside at the Hotter Than Hell when you do the triple threat. So you're in a tent, no AC, 3 days in the heat, doing 3 big events. It is a bit of a whooping.
Yeah. That second year, we brought a travel trailer, though, so I had AC that year.
Oh,
so,
we did not. We had a tent.
You were in a tent. I remember, y'all, because we all were in like a little group, and y'all were in a tent. Yeah. So, we one of the things that I wanted to mention, and I don't know if I've ever, you probably don't know this, and it's worth mentioning, but you are one of the people, and you are one of like the main people that really like inspired me to get into bikepacking and bikepack racing.
Yeah.
Like, because we were all like riding together, and I think it was like you and Luke Conlon maybe that I think were kind of like the first to start dipping your toes into the water. And we rode together quite a bit. And the other thing about you is you are an incredibly strong rider. Like I've never once been able to keep up with you, keep your pace on any level. I mean, you always have decimated me and will always decimate me on a bike.
Well, I don't know about that, but try hard. Doesn't come naturally. I just put a lot of effort in.
Yeah, no, and it shows. I mean, you really are like, and I lived with you for 6 months, so I got like an insight into you are really disciplined, from nutrition to training to on the bike training, like, well, I guess off the bike training and on the bike training, like you're very disciplined.
Yeah, I think, some people drink, some people take drugs to deal with stress and anxiety. I like to ride my bike, work out, and the only way that you can do that is being disciplined if you want to be good at something, especially when you're not naturally talented or you don't have a natural gift at something. You've got to work harder than everybody else at it. So all of those things was just me trying to keep up with everybody else. I just had to work a little harder at it and be a little bit more disciplined. Yeah.
So who inspired you? Like, when did you get into cycling? And really, and I guess I'm curious also, like, where did you learn about bikepacking, and when did you kind of get introduced and inspired to take it to that next level?
So I've always been active, even as a kid. I always rode my bike when I was a kid. Like, it was my favorite thing to do. But I also played soccer a lot growing up, even into adulthood. So when I moved to Texas, I remember Christopher, my husband, telling me, because he was big into mountain biking and adventure races, that if I didn't want to go mountain biking all the time. I would get left behind a lot.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, fair deal. I like riding a bike. Then he got a little bit more than he bargained for.
Oh, yeah. He awoke a beast.
He woke a beast. But when I first moved here in 2010, him and Mike Record went and rode the Tour Divide. They did it southbound. So they didn't do the race. They just did it as a tour.
Okay.
I just moved to
And what year was that?
That was 2010.
Okay.
I moved here in March of 2010. And then in the June, they were setting off to do the Tour Divide. So I went along with them, and I followed behind in an RV and then eventually in a Jeep. So kind of once I transitioned over to the Jeep, I kind of rode all of the forest roads, or drove all the forest roads. And then I would kind of leapfrog Christopher and Mike. And then, it's obviously a very long route of like 2,700 miles. So, kind of the further those guys got into it, they started riding their own ride. So I would support Christopher and I would set up camp for him. I would break camp down while he went and rode. And then I would get in the Jeep, ride all the forest roads through New Mexico and Colorado, and then leapfrog him and then set up camp again. And that got me really interested in like camping on the bikes and stuff.
Yeah.
So we said, hey, we'd do it again. And we did it in 2016. And I think really 2016 was kind of like the catalyst for me getting into like bikepacking. We'd done a lot of riding in between that, like mountain bike racing, part of BVMBA, which he was also a part of.
The
Patrick.
Brazos Valley Mountain Bike Association.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of mountain biking trips on weekends, Colorado. But I think it was really when we did the Tour Divide in 2016. We did it northbound this time. And the benefit of doing it northbound was we got to see all the racers coming southbound. So we had the opportunity to meet Mike Hall
Wow.
when he set the world or the Guinness record on the Tour Divide, the final time that he did it.
Yeah.
We also got to see Chris Paleska, I think he's called, who was the single speed
Right.
kind of record holder for the Tour Divide. And
Yeah, he's been on the podcast.
Yep. So those guys
I
were
never
like,
got it, Mike, though,
never?
which is really sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is one of the sad moments of like the podcast, or just like, it would have been really neat to have, because he was so inspirational to all
Yep.
of us, around that time. I mean, he was kind of the guy that everybody was following and rooting for.
He was the
and
superstar of
He
bike
was the
pack racing.
superstar.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what was crazy about those two guys was like, even though they was like on pace to like set the records, they stopped and like had a conversations with us. Like they was just out on a Sunday bike ride. Didn't look stressed. Just looked like they was out there just for the day. Not that they'd been out there for like, 10, 11, 12 days. But that's what really kind of piqued my interest in bike packing. And then specifically bike pack racing, was just the thought of like going all of those miles self-supported on a bike and you got to figure it out for yourself. That's an adventure, right? I mean, you can go on vacation and you can, stay in a hotel and have bed and breakfast or, whatever that might be. But like just living off your bike, it's a different life. And when we did the Tour Divide, like very quickly you realize like how much stuff you have that you don't actually need and how much noise there is around you. And then when you're on your bike and you're bike packing like that, the only things that are important is where are you going to sleep? Where do I get my water from? And where am I going to get my food from?
Yeah.
And then everything else is kind of irrelevant. Time doesn't matter. You don't miss computers. You don't miss your cell phone. Just like living outside is like really freeing. And I think it's like, I don't know, it just like calms you down and like it just gives you a completely different perspective on, what's important and, what you should be doing with your life. And that, there's a lot of things that we get ourselves kind of like stressed over that's not really important.
I really think that style of riding helps to bring life in focus. And I think that I really do believe that we're tapping into, the version of ourselves that we like never get to use anymore, which is like that endurance animal that we've evolved to be. And I've said it on the podcast a million times, but we didn't grow up in temperature controlled houses and, cars that would drive us around and Uber Eats and everything that would bring us food. Like we are still as a species, like trying to figure out how to work within this construct that we've formed for ourselves. But when we go out and we're just out in nature and we bring it down to the bare minimums of food, water, shelter, and getting from point A to B, you mentioned like it's kind of calming and stuff. And I think it's calming because we're giving ourselves that thing that we're craving the most. And I think most of us in this society don't realize how much our bodies are craving that mental reset, the
ability to unplug.
Yeah.
Unplug from modern life. Unplug from expectations of like, what's your job title? What's your salary? What type of car do you drive? How big's your house, right? Where do your kids go to school? Like,
how many zeros are in your bank account?
Yeah, how many zeros are in your bank account? Like, some of those things are important, but they're not the be-all and end-all. But that's how we measure ourselves with success, and that's what we think makes us happy, or that's what we believe is how we should live our lives. But the pressure that comes with that to sustain it is not always sustainable for everybody. But a lot of people don't get the opportunity to completely unplug from society. And when you go bikepacking, that's where I think you have that opportunity to unplug. I just think society has this comfort crisis where people don't want to do things that are hard or uncomfortable. They would rather just stay in that comfort zone and never really truly like experience life or live.
Yeah.
Because they're too worried about keeping up with the Joneses next door to go take a period of time off work to like go and just fully immerse yourself on a bike and just a tent or a bivvy or a hammock and, just go out there and wander. Like that's outside of most people's comfort zones.
And outside their, like what's out of their field of vision. I think that's right. One of the hard things about our society is like, not only is it like outside of their comfort zone, but it's outside of their worldview where they don't, like, who do you know that's doing this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's, one of the good things about a podcast and trying to like promote this type of activity is helping to spread the word that this is out there and also it's accessible to you. And to your point earlier, the only thing standing between you and riding the Tour Divide is a little bit of a lot of dedication, and being focused on it. But it really is accessible to everybody. And I truly believe that, most people, aside from disabilities and some things, can do this.
Well, I think a lot of times people put limits on themselves, either through their own personal belief or the limits that people or society have put on them. Like, you shouldn't do that. It's dangerous. Or
right.
Why would you do that? Like, you've got a great career. Why would you throw it all away to go and ride across the country? But I don't think you're throwing it away. I think you just become really interested when you come back. And, most people are like really interested and really want to know and kind of crave what it is that people do that's outside of the norm that they're not brave enough to do. So they kind of live through somebody else vicariously because they want to know about your experiences and what it was because they're not brave enough to take that step because it's outside of what is deemed as normal or what you should do, right? So I don't know. But none of us are here forever. And, I think when life gives you opportunities to go and really explore it or really like kind of get down to like just removing all of the noise and the responsibilities that adults have on a day-to-day basis, like getting out there on a bike and just going out in the wild, if you like something like the Tour Divide. It doesn't even have to be that big, but even just going out on a weekend overnight and like getting out in the forest and getting out in nature and completely being unplugged. Like, I think some people also like don't like that quietness because it's not normal, right? Our brains are always constantly overstimulated, and then all of a sudden you've taken away all of the technology. And you sat there in the forest or in the trees, and you're like, well, what do I do now? Because nobody knows how to be still.
Right. Or in their head for 12 hours a day on the bike or longer. Yeah.
Because of the overstimulation that we have through TVs, laptops, cell phones, like constantly being busy or constantly like trying to achieve something. Like, I don't think people know now how to like just sit and be.
No, they don't. And I think, to expand on that point, I also don't think that they realize the benefit that comes from, all the things that we're talking about, to your mental health and, the endorphins you get from your body and how you feel about yourself and how it helps you put in perspective the things in life that really matter, right? Like, I think if people knew that was waiting for them on the other side, they might be more willing to go and find it. But I think people look at it and are like, okay, bugs, bears, dirt, sweat,
Yep.
And also don't have all those things. I don't have my Netflix. I don't have my AC.
Yep.
And so there's all these fear barriers that are keeping people out. But on the other side of that is something really special. And I mean, having done this podcast for, I guess, close to 7 years now, people that get into bikepacking rarely, they might take a hiatus for a while.
Yep.
Life gets busy or whatever. But once you realize the benefits and the value that come from going on these types of adventures or expeditions, the value it has in your life just keeps pulling you back in.
It does. So I did take a hiatus, one because of, I got an opportunity for a big promotion at work, and then also COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then it was last year on the East Texas Showdown when I was like, man, I need to go and get back into this because it was something that I really enjoy and it's something that I missed. And also I was so wrapped up in achieving at work, I knew I needed to kind of find some balance. And the way that I know how to do that is on my bike and then going for crazy long rides on my bike.
Yeah.
Doing a weekend ride, a 2, 3, 4 hours, that burns off the crazy from the week. But to really, truly, unplug. The way that I do that is I get on my bike and I'll do a bikepacking event or do some crazy long days on the bike because I know that nothing else matters other than just riding the bike and then, finding my food, my water. If I need to sleep somewhere, then finding somewhere to sleep. But also, it's meditation. I don't know about you, Patrick, but when I do those long rides, I can look down and 10 miles has gone and I don't remember the last 10 miles. I'm like, oh, 10 miles. And I'm like, I don't remember what I saw. I don't remember it. And I don't know if it's meditation or it's the sound of the gravel on the wheels. But that's when I really know that I'm
in the zone.
I'm in the zone and I've completely relaxed and, my brain has nothing to think about other than just keep turning the pedals and just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Did you complete the Tour Divide? And you said 2016, right?
2016, yeah. We started south and we went north.
Yeah.
Yep. So we went all the way up to the Canadian border. It was, we taught it. It was 42 days we did it. Me and Christopher. Being with your spouse for 42 days can be challenging at times. But, I think overall, we rode well together. I mean, as you know, Patrick, we're very different people. Christopher's a little bit more laid back than I am. I'm a little bit more go-go. 42 days is really, really hard. And I think if a marriage is going to survive, you've got a good marriage, is can you spend 42 days together?
Yeah. And doing something hard.
Doing something hard when you're cold, wet, hungry, tired. And pretty much you're in each other's company for 24/7. So if you want to test your marriage, go on the Tour Divide and do it together and see how your affair went at the end.
Yeah, maybe don't go into the Tour Divide if your marriage is a little rocky. Maybe wait
definitely not. We did have a couple of spats, as you would imagine.
So you have to.
But I think it's just part of it, right? And then we had to work through it, and you've got to work through it because what else are you going to do? You're out there together, and you're leaning on each other when you're doing something like that as, kind of as a team or as a pair. So you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
There's no getting away from it. You have to have the hard conversations.
So I wanted to segue into so you did 2017. After that, 2016, you did Tour Divide. 2017, You signed up for the Grand Gravel 500, which is a race that no longer exists, but was Billy Rice, which a lot of people will probably know, was the race director, also another local to Bryan College Station, started the Grand Gravel 500. So you rode that in 2017. And then that's when you I know it was like you and David Reniger both wrote it. Some other people I know, like Gary Rogers, Luke wrote it. There's quite a few people that like I knew that wrote it that year.
Yeah.
And that's what really inspired me to like, okay, I'm doing it next year.
Yep.
And so in 2018, you and I both did the Grand Gravel 500. It was my first race. That year, you put on a freaking clinic. It was, and a lot of Indiana Schultz have been on the show like 3 or 4 times.
Yep.
So it was Indiana Schultz first, you second.
Yep.
Do you remember how many hours behind Indy you
finished? I was 2 hours behind him. And I was really mad because I got a bum knee on the second day. So I was like pedaling at some parts with like one leg. And then I remember I was at a gas station and I was trying to tip my knee up because I had all of this pain in my knee. But I didn't know like how close behind I was. I didn't know how far in front he was or how close I was to him. I just know that I didn't have a clean run. And then when I finished, I think I was like 2 hours behind him. So although I was like very excited to finish because I was so tired, and I was quite pleased with second, I was mad. I was like 2 hours over 500 miles. Like, that's nothing.
Yeah, I could have made something
that 30,
out of that.
40 minutes I took at the gas station, like working on my knee.
Right.
Right. Or like pedaling with one leg for a period of time because, you know, my knee was just like killing me. And so nothing that a bike fit didn't take care of and 16 weeks of PT after the race. But
oh, wow. So you really did damage to the knee.
Yeah, it was just more of an overuse injury, and then I needed a bike fit, so I was just not quite right in the right position.
Yeah.
But you know, I think I was like, okay, I think I'm quite good at this. Like, it was only the second time that I'd done it. The first year that I did it, and I came fourth. That was a big learning curve, huge learning curve.
Yeah.
The second year I went back, I was a little smarter. And then, you know, I think through experience, because I did that 3 times, I think through some experience, like, I've learned that, you know, you don't have to like lay it all out there on day one. Like, my goal is always like, as long as I'm no more than 20, 25 miles behind, I can make that up in the second day. But you know, it's just like anything when you're doing an event, right, is you don't leave it all out there on day one because you have nothing for day 2. Like, pick it up on the second day or the third day or whatever it is. Like, ride into the ride. Don't chase the ride.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's, like, I've kind of learned, like, working out through, like, going to CrossFit. And then even just doing, like, structured training is don't chase the effort. Wait for the effort to come to you, because you will ultimately be a lot quicker and you're not going to burn yourself out. I used to be the rabbit and I would chase everybody because I was so excited to get going, along with nerves because I wanted to do well. But I've learned, probably through experience, but also maturity, that, you know, you don't have to go out the gate so fast. There's ways you can make up that time as you kind of like you ride into the ride.
And something I remember that you would always say, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's been a number of years, but you were never racing against women. You were racing the field.
I'm racing everybody.
Yeah. You never really like, you're like, I'm going for the win, you know, gender aside. Like, I want to put on my best effort and I want to beat every single person in the field. Yep.
Yeah. I think I've always been competitive even when I was a kid. I always used to beat the boys in school until the boys like hit puberty and then, you know, they'd start taking over me. And I always used to think it wasn't fair, but you know, I think a lot of the science and what people know now is the longer the event, the more women are closer to guys, the longer the event. So like if you do a 100-meter sprint, men are going to outperform women every single time. They're just stronger, right? But the longer the distance, that gap decreases. So women do have a chance to like beat the men, right? You see that in ultra distance running. I mean, the women, the Berkeley Marathon, right, or the ultra marathon. Like, most people, some years they don't even have anybody finish. I think this year no one finished
at the Berkeley.
Yeah. But last year's winner was a woman,
right?
And there's a big ultra distance race in the UK across all of the national parks and the moorlands. And you know, one of the ladies that won it a couple of years ago, she was like, she just had a baby 9 months earlier, and at every rest stop she was like pumping breast milk to feed her baby, and she still won by 9 hours from the guys.
Who was that? Do you remember her name?
I don't remember her name.
Okay.
It was on the BBC News. And then I thought that was inspirational because, you know, she's 9 months out from having a baby, and there she is, like, kicking guys' butts on this trail run or this off-road run.
Well, I've said it a ton, but I think, I mean, that's one thing I love about this sport. And as a father of 2 daughters, I love showcasing, you know, in particular women, and endurance sports are a place where you can really see the strength of women. And I think on average, women are tougher. And I think that they are, I mean, y'all are endurance animals, is what I've always said. Like, whenever it comes to endurance, y'all really shine. Like you said, if we're doing a squat lift or deadlifts or something, a little bit more challenging, or a 100-yard sprint or whatever. But when it comes to endurance, it's where you can, it's more of a level playing field for sure.
Yeah, when I was a kid, like, we would do athletics at school. It'd be a 100-meter sprint. I was the last one finishing. And then they would say, hey, let's go do cross country and then run around the field as many times as you can. And they would always pull me off. So I was never fast, but I've always been able to go for a long time. So, you know, when I look at, like, my abilities, where are they better? It's over the longer distance events, is where I think, like, I'm more prone to doing well than, like, short events. I'm not that fast, high-powered athlete. I'm more of that long endurance athlete that can just keep going, as long as you can keep your mind in the game.
Me too. I've never, you and I, because we did the Timbra race series, the Texas mountain bike, whatever Timbra stands for, a race series. And we were both pretty heavily into that. And I was never competitive at all, but I mean, who cares? I never cared. I've never been much, I'm competitive with myself, very much so. And it's always about personal progress for me. And, but it's never been about podiums. And I mean, part of that is because I was never close to a podium, but and I mean, I'm slow in bikepacking too, but I found that I'm stronger whenever it comes to endurance, you know, the mental aspect of it or whatever. Like I perform better, I'm happier going for long distances, you know.
Yeah, I think you know, you've got daughters, I've got nieces. So kind of like for me, I want to show them, you know, the same as you, right? Like what can girls accomplish, right? And, you know, I hope that as they get older, you know, they can look up to me and say, wow, look at what Auntie Kerry did. Man, I can do that, right? And I don't want them to ever feel limited by what they can do or what they should do. I think a lot of people have fear about women being out there in the forest on dark country roads by themselves on a bike. But I always tell people that's your fear, not my fear. Don't put your fear onto me.
Well said, yeah.
But also at the end of the day, there's nothing there on a night that's not there during the day. And I think a lot of people get weirded out, like, and nervous about riding through the night, not because they've got any anxiety about it, but I think because other people have anxiety about it, and then they place that onto you as an individual, and then you carry their burden. And then it can stop you doing things. So I always politely decline when somebody shares their fears with me about me being on the bike. I always say, hey, thank you for that. Hey, that's your fear, not my fear. I've done this before. Like, I know where my fears are and I know how to handle those, but that's not my fear.
I think that is one of the, and I'm speaking as a man, but, you know, speaking to other women and stuff, it seems like that is one of the bigger, I don't know if it's one of the bigger, but it is certainly a barrier for women in particular, is not even like your own belief in yourself or your own fears, but all the chatter that's going on around you and all like the little micro comments and sometimes the just blatant, you shouldn't be out there, you know, it's too scary. That seems to be one of the most damaging narratives for women in particular.
Yeah, and it does happen. Like I have people tell me that all the time. Like when I'm on my bike, you go into a gas station or you're going into like a fast food joint when you're out there racing the bike or just out there, you know, just bikepacking for leisure. And, you know, people are always concerned when they just see you by yourself. And, I don't know what, most people in society are good people.
Yeah.
There's bad people everywhere. I would feel much safer on a country road in the middle of the night by myself than I would in a city in a dark alley on a night. Even though there's millions of people around, the chances of something happening there are probably much greater than being out on a country road or in the middle of a national forest in the middle of the night. Like being out in the national forest or the state parks or out on the country roads, like I think that's, be aware of your surroundings, but I think it's generally pretty safe, and I don't have those fears. I would have more fear walking through a city on a night than I would being out in the country on a night down a country road.
So have you had any negative experience as a woman out riding your bike?
With guys?
Yeah.
No.
With creeps.
Not
just guys.
Yeah, with creeps in general. Not really. I think one thing that, I think sometimes it's hard to distinguish male versus female when you've got a helmet on.
Yeah.
If you have short hair or your hair's tied back, they just see a cyclist on a bike.
Right.
So I am not somebody who's into pink too much. It's not one of my favorite colors, but I started wearing pink on my bike. What I noticed, and maybe it's just I was more aware, but I got wider passes by cars when I'm riding on the road. I didn't get a bottle thrown at me, which I've had before.
Yeah.
But I think people are just more, like, I don't know, like maybe a little bit more forgiving of seeing somebody on a bike. Because a lot of car drivers kind of think people on a bike, like, it's just somebody in a Lycra riding a bike, right? They don't see you as a human being. They just see you as somebody on the road that's kind of delaying them from where they want to get to. One of the things in Texas, right, is is it smoke rolled or coal rolled or whatever?
Coal rolled, yeah.
Coal rolled. I haven't been coal rolled while I've been wearing pink or when I had long hair. So, I think it's back to what I said before, right? It's just being aware of your surroundings, where you're riding, like being smart about it. But at the end of the day, there's good people out there and there's bad people. And that's true wherever you live, whether you're in the city, whether you're in a town, whether you're in the country. And I think, I don't know why people have such a negative connotation to people on a bike. I don't know if they're fearful of people on the bike. I don't know why it irritates them. But, I do think, like, being a female cyclist, like, riding with guys, I think sometimes we get a little bit more of a pass than maybe guys on a bike.
Yeah.
Not always, but I have seen that happen.
Yeah. I could see that. Like, whenever you said they give me, if I'm wearing pink and...
Yeah, and I got my long hair down my back, then...
They're like, oh, okay, we're gonna be nice and we're going to give a little bit more room.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. The whole car thing is so frustrating and irritating as a cyclist. I was curious to ask you this question. As a local, what is your perception of, like, our access to cycling and our cycling infrastructure in our local town? Because I've been rather outspoken about this on the podcast, and I'm curious to get your perspective.
So maybe my perception is a little skewed, coming from the UK, where we have national cycle paths everywhere, routes everywhere.
Yeah.
I do not think, and I think they're trying to make it better, but I don't think Bryan College Station is a great cycling community for, like, commuting on a bike. I know that there's cycle lanes being put in, but in terms of it being, like, if I want to go from home to work, I have to be really careful of the route that I choose. So can it be better? Absolutely. But I think it's really dependent on how they prioritize, like, the infrastructure of the city as it grows. Are they going to do it more towards pedestrians and public transportation and people, utilizing bicycles, or are they going to make it more car-driven? If they make it car-driven, then, it's always going to be hard to get around. I mean, you're a vulnerable road user and, you're riding on the road and you've got a half-ton, three-quarter-ton truck, like, passing you on a 2-lane road, right? There's not much room. Those trucks take up the whole entire lane anyway, and then you've got a bicycle on there. just the amount of college kids in town and people on phones, on the cars, like it really is like, if you're cycling through the city, you have to be really careful about the routes that you choose and the time of the day you choose to ride those routes. And I think, local people in the area, when they get frustrated about, cyclists being out on the FM roads, it's because they're trying to get away from traffic. And just as the city continues to grow, like cyclists have ridden those roads for years and decades. It's not that we've just appeared there. It's that construction's appeared there.
Yeah.
And now cars and bikes are coming into contact more frequently. But I think there is a huge cycling community within the Bryan College Station area. There has to be something done for the infrastructure to allow people to continue to ride their bikes. It's good for people's health. It's good for the community. And I think there's a lot of studies out there that show that the more you have cycling infrastructure, the better the local economy is.
Yeah. Yeah, and Arkansas is a good representation of that,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, did you see our College Station mayor, I think it was, he's a cyclist. Did you know that?
I did not.
I did not know that either. And it's funny, so they just posted on Facebook that he's declaring May, for the city at least, Bike Month. For the city, and he's got I don't remember the kind of bike, the name brand of this bike, but it's one of those cargo bikes with the big
basket on the front,
big basket on the bike or on the front. And it's funny. I was at on Texas at New Maine, right there at the entrance to campus, just 3 days ago. And I just noticed his bike. I was like, oh, that's a cool bike. I'd love to have one of those one day. And it turns out that was the mayor. I had no idea. And that bike, he was with that bike on the news announcement. But I'm with you. So you're kind of echoing what I said. I mean, a couple of things. One, our cycling infrastructure is atrocious in my opinion. And two, we've seen an exponential growth of population, so way more cars, and it's just getting scarier and scarier to ride in the city in particular. So I find myself driving out of town just about it sucks. I don't feel safe riding out of town. Where you live is pretty good because you can hop on that paved trail that
we use the Lick Creek bike path to go out to Lick Creek. But that bike path or that multi-use path, it's not really a bike path, it's a multi-use path. If you go out there at after school or after work, there's families down there with kids on scooters, there's people with dogs, there's people running, it's a great path. But you also have to be careful when you go down there because, cyclists and runners and people hiking and then dogs and kids on little bikes and little scooters, you don't want there to be an accident, right?
Yeah.
So those multi-use paths are good. I think it's great for people to be able to kind of get out into some of the nature that we still a little bit that we have left that keeps getting chopped down. Plus, we also have the ability to kind of go down Peach Creek and then out onto 159 out towards Milliken area. But
that's where you just rode 2 days ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I saw on your Strava.
But typically, I don't like to do that unless I'm riding with other people.
Yeah.
Because there's 60-mile-an-hour roads and, it's full of trucks. There's no shoulders. And
Ken Spence died on
Highway 6 on the feeder road.
Right
near Indian Licks, right?
Yeah.
Avid cyclist, probably the guy that had the most always safety first. And no matter how many precautions he took, he was still a vulnerable road user. And, unfortunately, somebody hit him from behind. And, when you get hit from a truck from behind, nobody's coming back from that.
Yeah, that one was hard. That
was really hard because, as a cycling community, we all know what bikes each other ride. You might not always know each other's names,
right,
but you know exactly which bike somebody rides. So when you saw, we didn't even need to know the name. We knew by the bike, right? And that was really, really hard because I know for a long time, a lot of people wouldn't go out and ride solo. We'd only go in groups. And I think it shook a lot of people too, that it happened so close to home through somebody that has rode thousands of miles a year and had ridden for years and was so safety conscious about the routes that he took and making sure that he had the right lights on his bike and he was able to be seen. He was a huge endurance racer, mountain biker. So it's still kind of crazy every time I ride past there and there's the ghost bike. I always take an extra look back, just because it's, even after all these years, it's still kind of like, it kind of brings it to light that, man, like one of our friends, like, kind of passed away here. And
the scary thing was, like, I mean, where he was riding is in one of the most safest places you could possibly ride. It was on a feeder road. It was a 2-lane feeder road and a very wide shoulder, and he was in the shoulder. And that particular stretch of road is so lightly trafficked. I mean, it probably gets one car every 30 minutes or something like that. It's like, it's just in this section that has no traffic. And so it's just completely unreasonable. It reminds me of Jay Petterberry, who got hit on the Great Divide. Did you know about that one? The Great Mountain?
Yeah. I think it was in Colorado, right?
Plane is, middle of the day, good lighting, just doing everything right, and very experienced, safety conscious cyclist. And anyway, it sucks. It's a reality. And I think, I have seen some improvements in our local community, and I'm hoping our mayor will kind of promulgate some more change, and we see because like what you were talking about with that bike path, that Lick Creek bike path, right? That's a case in point. Like, they built that, and now it's flooded with people, right?
Which is awesome.
Is awesome, and it's also case in point that we need more of this.
Absolutely.
If you build it,
people will come.
We're gonna ride it. Like, we're desperate for infrastructure.
Yep.
So, Mayor, if you're listening.
I was about to say, hey, Matt, if you're listening, you should ride your bike to work every single day, and then also be open to other cyclists in the community who also want to ride their bikes to work, to ride their route to work, and see what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, try mine. See how that goes.
South College Station to downtown Bryan. Man, Fin Feather in the morning is, there's a bike lane there, but it's full of glass or it's full of debris. So that's another great point, right? Even if they put this infrastructure in place and they have the bike lanes, just like on William D. Fitch, there's a bike lane there. But a lot of times, like, you either have to ride out the bike lane because there's debris in there, there's like sticks, there's nails, there's glass, there's stuff that's fallen out the back of people's cars. So even though there's bike lanes, like, sometimes they're not always rideable because they're just full of debris. Right. And you don't see that when you're in the car because you're going so quickly. But on a bicycle, when people are like, why are they not riding in the bike lane? A lot of times it's because there's so much debris in the bike lane, it's not safe for you to ride in the bike lane.
Yeah, and motorists don't know that. And so they just think we're being assholes,
Yeah. And there's another road that I ride going to downtown Bryan, and the bike lane, if you ride it on trash day, everybody puts their trash cans in the bike lane.
Yeah.
So then you're in a 2-lane road with a bike lane that you can't ride in. So you have to ride in the road, and then the cars are upset, or the people in the cars, because it's not the cars that are upset, it's the people in the cars that are upset because you're not in the bike lane, but you can't ride the bike lane because it's full of debris, and then everybody's got their trash cans in the bike lane.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a positive spin. We'll tie a positive bow on our local community, because at East Texas Showdown this year, there were 14 people from Bryan College Station that participated, right? I was wondering if that surprised you, because it surprised the shit out of me.
I didn't know there was 14 people in Bryan College Station that was into this.
Yeah. I mean, but I tried to organize a little group ride with everybody who did ETS this year in our local community, just so we can kind of all hang out and be like, oh, there's more of us. Let's hang out. Let's go ride bikes together. I got COVID.
You did.
And did you know I had COVID? I knew I sent an email and said I was sick, but it turns out I had COVID.
Yeah, you said in a text message that you had COVID, and then I was like, keep away from me, Patrick. I can't be sick.
It fucked me up. Natalie and I just rode this like 3 days ago or something. I want to say Sunday. So on Friday, we rode the new Central Texas Showdown. I developed a new death loop, so it's now 60 miles, and we went out just to ride it for fun, and also just to check out the new death loop that I had scouted. And I threw up 5 times on that ride, and my heart rate was spiking. Like, it was crazy, because I was telling Natalie, I've ridden for a long time. I know where my heart rate should be based on the
you know how you should feel.
I know how I should feel. I felt fine. But my heart rate was spiking like 30 to 40 beats higher per minute than it should be. And about 20 miles in the ride, I wasn't nauseous or anything. I just like threw up. That happened 5 times. Like I would try to like, okay, threw up, great. Eat a little food, throw up, great. It's like I did that for 60 miles, or I guess the last 40 miles. It was, but our assumption is that it was just COVID. I'm still dealing with like the long-term effect of COVID. Like it really fucked me up. I was in Big Bend just like about 10 days ago, and I went on a ride there, and it was challenging. I was like, well, maybe it's the elevation, and maybe, this is really hard terrain. And so I kind of like wrote it off.
Yeah.
But now I realize like that COVID is like had really hit me hard. But anyway, we got a bunch of local cyclists, and it's cool to see like the adventure cycling side of it growing in our community. And so I was curious to get your just some fun rapid fire questions. So we have Lake Bryan and Milliken trails. What's your favorite local trails to ride?
Currently right now, Lake Bryan.
And what is your favorite gravel ride?
Oof. What, locally?
Yeah, locally.
Man, that's a great question. I have a loop around Grimes County, where I go out through Navasota, through Iola, Beedies, and then back into North Bryan. That one, when I was training for the East Texas Showdown, 1 week I'd do it clockwise and next week I'd do it anti-clockwise.
So how many miles is that?
It's like 98 miles.
Oh, God. Okay.
So
couldn't make it 100, huh?
Yeah, I can ride around the block a few times.
There you go.
But Grimes County has some good kind of like rolling hills out there, which we don't necessarily get around here. Very little traffic, very little pavement once you get down to Navasota. But it's, there's lots of good stops if you need it, like gas station stops. But generally it's got enough climbing in there, over 90 plus miles. That gives you kind of a good kind of taster for like, going up some steep climbs. I think it's about 3,000 feet of climbing in total over the 90 miles. And then just you're out there in those small towns, so the traffic's not too busy. And it's an easy exit out of town and an easy entry back into town, coming back in through like North Bryan, through like Elmer Whedon, Hardy Whedon. Then it's just a quick hop on 30 just to get back onto Bed Pond and then back into South College Station. So if I want an easy gravel ride, easy as in like I don't really have to think about it too much, but it gives me enough variety for doing something like the East Texas Showdown, it's generally going to be the Grimes County Loop or the Navasota Loop that I would do.
Yeah, maybe we'll share some of those routes whenever we post
absolutely.
this episode.
I have a few of them
for our locals. For our locals, we gotta tap into that. I'm excited. We're gonna redo the group ride. I gotta find a break in my schedule.
I think it would be really cool if there's that many people from Bryan College Station that did the East Texas Showdown that's into this bikepack racing, or just bikepacking for fun in general. Like, man, we would have a great little community to kind of do some overnighters with people from the local area, but also like, it opens up and gives you access to other races when you have other people within the town, that you can maybe like kind of cost share with, right? If it's expensive to get out to an event. Most of these events generally don't cost a lot of money, but, sometimes getting there is quite difficult because they're, a long ways away. And, sometimes you need to pod out there, especially if it's the start and finish is at a different location, right? It's okay if it's a loop. But a lot of the long distance events are not loops. They're generally like point A to point B.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have like friends or family out there that can, kind of meet you at the finish line to, organize logistics to get you back and things like that. But it would be great to kind of get everybody together and, kind of see where everybody's at and what people's like goals are and aspirations for bikepacking. And, I think we could build a really good community if we have that many people in the area that is really into this.
Yeah.
I love riding with a group.
Yeah.
I like riding solo if I'm training for something because I don't like to be distracted. I like to train in my zones without feeling the pressure of chasing somebody, or they feel like, I feel like they're having to wait on me because, I'm going up a hill so slowly because I'm trying to stay in a power zone or a heart rate zone. But generally, like when I'm riding my bike for fun, like the funnest time to ride my bike is with other people. And, I think that's what keeps people motivated, right? And I know that people helped me get into bikepacking. Maegan Fitzgerald, who rode the East Texas Showdown, that was the first time she'd ever done anything like that. And, she was very excited about it, but also, first time she'd done it, a little bit of anxiety here and there about what should I take? Can I ride through the night? How do I train for it? So riding with Maegan, was great because, I was able to kind of give her a footstep into the bikepacking world and the ultra endurance world, and
she killed it.
We've created a monster.
Yeah, I was really impressed by her.
So you should watch out for her next year.
I am.
I think she's going to be.
She's on the radar.
She's on the radar.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure. Yeah, well, good. We're going to do it. All right, we're segueing. We're going to talk about cancer.
Yep.
I think first off, I want to say that my perception of you is that you do not want to be defined by cancer.
Absolutely not.
But right now, cancer is part of your life journey, and I think it's worth talking about and shedding some light on your personal journey, and maybe that can help other people as well. So as a starting point, I mean, when were you diagnosed, and what were you diagnosed with?
So I was diagnosed with cancer in 2024, 2 weeks after the East Texas Showdown.
Oh, wow.
So I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was kind of a shock because nobody in my family has had it. So naively, I always thought breast cancer was something that ran in families. If your grandma had it, your mum had it, your aunts had it, then that was something that you could be prone to. I didn't know that it was, you could actually get it when, it didn't run in a family. So I knew before the East Texas Showdown that I had something because I found it in the shower. And I was like, it's probably just hormonal. And I knew that I had a yearly kind of women's exam coming up, literally a couple of days after the East Texas Showdown. So I didn't worry about it too much. I always thought that, kind of there was static. So this felt like, this knot felt like it moved around. So I didn't really have any anxiety about it or anything like that. Went and did the East Texas Showdown. The next week I went for my yearly checkup. And then they gave me a call and said, hey, we found something that looks suspicious. And at the time I was like, no shit, Sherlock. I pointed it out while I was there. But still, I was oblivious to the fact of it was actually going to be something. So it did kind of unravel pretty quickly. I remember it was April 2nd when they gave me the call. And it was 10:30 in the morning. And I vividly remember that because I was packing up my laptop because I was flying out to Las Vegas to do a conference for work. And I was like, oh, what do I do? So I packed up and got in my car and drove to the airport like any normal person would. So as I was driving to the airport and going through airport security, we was kind of setting up some appointments for an ultrasound.
Can you pause real quick? What was that? What did they tell you on that phone call? Or maybe you're getting to that point.
Yeah, they said that, hey, we found something suspicious, and it looks like an invasive ductal carcinoma. And I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
What was their concern level? I mean, I don't know what, I've never had cancer. And unfortunately, my dad died of pancreatic cancer, but that was one of those things where, hey, you have cancer and 6 months later, you're gone. So.
Well, we've talked about that because my dad also died of the same thing, which was pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
Hey, you've got six months to a year. I think there was roughly about the same age, and we was roughly about the same age when our dads passed. So when they called me, they said, hey, can you go for an urgent ultrasound to Houston? And I was like, why do I need to go to Houston? So then she was like, well, let me see if I can get you an appointment here. And I was like, okay, well, I'm leaving to go to Las Vegas. And she's like, well, how long are you going to be gone for? And I was like, till Friday? I was like, should I not go? And she was like, oh, let me call you back and see when I can get you an appointment. I was like, okay. And that's when I made the decision. I just got in my car and started driving to the airport.
Yeah.
So she called me and she said, hey, the earliest we can get you in is Monday. So I said, okay. I said, if you get any cancellations before then, please call me. and I'll change my flight and I'll come back from Las Vegas early. So I didn't tell anybody. I just went to Las Vegas and worked a conference for 3 days. And to be quite honest, it was probably the best thing that I could have done because the waiting is the hardest.
Yeah.
So I was completely like 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the night. You kind of work in. It's a huge convention. It was done at the Bellagio. So you just don't have time to stop. I came home Friday night. Saturday morning, I said to my husband, Christopher, I said, hey, I've got something to tell you. So I said, hey.
When you say nobody, you meant nobody.
I mean, nobody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because I was like, what am I going to do? Like, tell my husband and then go to Las Vegas for a week?
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do that. And I was like, I'm already committed to going. Like, I'm literally like going for my flight today. So, when you look back, right, you make, in times of stress, sometimes you make a decision and you're like, maybe I would have made a different decision next time. But at the time, I think honestly, looking back, even with hindsight, I think it was the best thing that I could have done because it took my mind off it. Not that I didn't think about it. I absolutely did. But for the most part, like there was enough distraction there that the week went relatively quickly.
And it makes me think about what you said earlier about, internalizing other people's fears. So if you had told Christopher, if you had told all these people, then not only are you dealing with your own like emotions and whatever you're
I have no answers for anybody.
But you're having to take on everybody else's thoughts and feelings and
everybody
emotions.
Else's thoughts, feelings, fears, their questions.
Yeah.
And at the time, like I had no answers, right? I didn't know anything. Like it looked suspicious. My research said that, hey, 10% are false findings. So I was like, okay, there's a 10% chance it's going to be nothing. But I told Christopher on the Saturday morning, and then on the Monday, we went for an ultrasound, which confirmed that, hey, it needed further investigation. And then on the Wednesday, I went for a biopsy, and then initial biopsy results came back quite quickly. They said it would take about 3 to 4 days. So we kind of got the initial results back, I think, on the Friday. And then by the Wednesday, I was seeing an oncologist surgeon, which was from College Station Surgical Associates, Dr. Williams. And then on the Thursday, I met my medical oncologist, Dr. Fleener, at the cancer clinic here in Bryan. That was kind of like when everything became real, when we saw the surgeon and then we saw the medical oncologist. And then on May 1st, we started chemotherapy. It was kind of a whirlwind, to be fair.
It was like less than 10 days from the call to starting chemo, it sounds like.
No, the call was on April 2nd, that there was a suspicious finding by May 1st. So it was like 4 weeks.
Okay.
But in that time, I'd had ultrasounds, biopsies, seen a surgeon, seen a medical oncologist, got insurance approved for my medicine. And then May 1st was my first day at the cancer clinic and my first infusion of chemotherapy and immunotherapy. And then the first day, I think it was a Wednesday. And then on the Tuesday, so the day before my first infusion of chemotherapy, I called home and told my family. So I hadn't even told them. And it wasn't that I didn't want to tell them. I just needed to have the full game plan.
Right.
So that when I called, I could give them all of the information in one go rather than drip feeding them information. And then being in the UK, that creates anxiety for them. And then they would have a lot of questions and a lot of fears that I didn't have answers to or. So I made the decision that I would get all of the information. And then once we got the plan in place and I knew what my treatment was going to look like, I called home and told my family. And then my mum was here in like 2 weeks.
How did you initially respond to that diagnosis?
It's kind of like it's very stressful, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Scary and stressful are the two.
Scary. I never used the word or the phrase, why me? But what I did say a lot was, how did this happen? And no one can tell me the how.
Right, which is frustrating.
So,
because for context, I know this about you, but you live a healthy lifestyle, you work out, you eat well, you ride your bike a lot, like
Yeah.
you run, like you live a very healthy lifestyle and have
Yeah.
for a long time. You, like you said, you've been an athlete ever since you were a kid. So
Yeah, and I remember when I first met my medical oncologist, and she goes, "Have you got any symptoms?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I literally just finished a 400-mile bike race." And I think that for me was like one of the reasons I chose the lifestyle that I have, which is, being conscious about my food, my calorie intake, my proteins, fats, and carbs, and working out, was because I didn't want anything like this to ever happen. So I thought I was doing everything that I should be doing to prevent something like this from happening. So exercise can reduce your cancer risk by 50%. So, I guess maybe I'm unlucky. Maybe I drew the short straw. But yeah, I mean, we always joke that I was the healthiest, fittest person that walked into the cancer clinic.
right.
And, people use the word, "You're sick." And I say, "I'm not sick." Do I look sick?
Yeah.
Well, I don't look sick. I don't act sick. I'm able to live a full life and still continue to work out and do all the things that I was doing before. So I don't view myself as being sick. I view myself as I have a metabolic condition, which is cancer, and nobody knows how or why I got it, because I'm not overweight. I'm not a sedentary lifestyle. I don't eat fast food. I'm not on a high sugar diet of artificial sweeteners and, a high sugar load. So, I don't know, everything happens for a reason. And, sometimes things happen and it's a test of, how much grit and how much mental strength do you have? And, maybe it's just one of those times of, it's just a part of my life journey. And it's something that, I think when you get cancer, your life is never going to be normal again. It's always going to be there. I read an article that said there's no such thing as being cancer-free. You're just in remission. And my life is going to be forever changed based off the treatments that I've had and, based off the event that has happened. Something went wrong. And unless we know why it went wrong, how do you prevent it from, reoccurring or happening again in the future?
Yeah.
I mean, we can send a robot to Mars, scoop up Mars dirt, fly it all the way back to Earth, but we can't figure out cancer.
Yeah. It's frustrating. Yeah. When are we going to fix cancer?
Well, if you fix it, there's no money in it anymore, right?
Yeah.
Big pharmaceutical companies, they make money off developing drugs and selling drugs. Well, if you develop a drug that cures people, then, where is the money to be made? And I'm not saying that that's the case by any means.
But it's a fair question. And
it's a fair question.
I mean, not just cancer, but, any number of diseases that we face, whenever it's this profitable for companies for there to be sick people, where is the motivation to find a real cure, and who's going to champion that, the finding a cure? Who does it benefit,
Well, I think the body has...
Other than the people who are sick.
Yeah, other than the people that are sick. But I do believe the body has its own natural ability to heal, right? But if you find natural ways to heal, then, who's funding that, and who's doing the scientific research, and who's doing the clinical studies on that? Nobody. Clinical trials and studies are done on pharmaceutical products because they need to get them out to market so that they can sell them, right? So I do think your body has its own ability to heal, but I don't think we really know how to do that. And I don't think modern life helps. And I think there's so much misinformation out there. You don't know what's true and what's not true.
Oh, man, that's so true.
So what do? Do you trust the medical field that's doing the best that they can do? Because doctors are there to heal people. And I think, 99.9% of doctors truly are there because they want to heal people and they want to get people to the other side. But also, there's not the same funding to research more natural ways of healing people rather than putting toxins in them. we've chose to go down traditional medicine route, which is chemotherapy and immunotherapy and whatever other drug they give me, or radiation therapy, because, it's a risk to go down the natural path when you really don't know what that looks like, because there's not enough information out there to do that. So I control the things that I can control, which is what I put in my mouth. It's what I eat. It's how I sleep. Continue to work out. Continue to ride my bike. Like, those are the things that I can control. I can't control my cancer. Like, that's up to my body to deal with, and that's up to hopefully the doctors to give me the right medicine or find the right combination of medicine to make sure that we can get it into remission, and then we can also move on with our life.
How has chemotherapy, like you're saying, I'm doing all these things, I can still go work out, but again, never having been on chemotherapy, how much more challenging is it? What kind of bigger barrier or hurdles are you having to overcome to live the lifestyle that you're choosing to continue to live?
Yeah, so my first round of chemotherapy was weekly. So every week I would go to the clinic and I would have an infusion. The biggest hurdle on that one was I lost all my hair. So going from having hair halfway down your back to then transitioning to it being to your shoulders, and then transitioning to it being short, then transitioning to not really having any. It didn't really bother me losing my hair. I was more worried about, can I still go to the gym and ride my bike? That's what I cared about. My hair, I said, would grow back and I could wear a hat, which is what I did.
Yeah.
I did buy a wig, put it on in the bathroom. I was like, I don't really like this. And then went and got it cut, got it styled. And then I was like, nope. I go to the gym too much and I ride my bike too much. I don't want to mess with this. So I chose just to wear a baseball cap and donated the wig to the cancer clinic so somebody else could have it, because it was a nice one, which wasn't an itchy one. So somebody that didn't have the funds to buy a nice wig or couldn't afford to buy one, they would have it.
Yeah.
My weekly treatment was really more about my energy levels stayed pretty good. They kind of went down over time. So as I got closer to the end of the 12 weekly of treatment, it took a little bit longer to kind of recover from workouts, but also I didn't have the same kind of engine. So, I definitely slowed down in my workouts. Then I moved to my second round of chemotherapy, which was called the Red Devil, which is everyone says is the worst one ever. So that was for 12 weeks. It was done every 3 weeks. On that one, that had a little bit more of a kick. So I would have it on a Thursday. By Thursday afternoon, it's always around 2:00. I'd start to feel really sleepy. So I would just be sat there on the couch, and then Christopher would say I just fell asleep, and then I'd wake up and he's like, "Oh, you awake?" And I was like, "Yeah, was I asleep?" And he goes, "Yeah, for 2 hours." I was like, "I was?" So I would get sleepy in an afternoon on that one for the first 4 to 5 days. But I had it on a Thursday, which meant that I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday to recover before I went back to work on a Monday. But what I found, or what I learned on this one, was in the morning when I got up, on a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday, I felt fine. I would go to the gym, I would go ride my bike, and then by 2:00, 4:00, I'd start to get sleepy. So quite fatigued. And then I'd start to feel a little icky. So I was a bit careful about what I ate. So I had some food intolerances on the second round. I generally found out what they was pretty quickly within 20 minutes of eating them, because it all came back up.
Yeah.
But within an hour, I was fine. I was having toast, and stuff like that. So I figured out the foods that I couldn't eat while I was going through the Red Devil. But once I got to Monday or Sunday night, I felt fine. So I think I was very fortunate that my side effects was very minimal compared to what other people get. But I truly believe that was because I continued to work out. And there's research and studies out there that if you keep fit and healthy, as you go through chemotherapy and you remain active, it actually helps with the side effects. So I would come home from chemotherapy treatment. I would go do a 5K walk. Before chemotherapy treatment, I would do 30 minutes and one on my bike. That was the day of chemo. But I always made sure I worked out the day after chemo, just to keep my body moving. And then really I had it in my mind that if I went and walked or I did an activity after chemo, I was helping flush it through my body. So it was like touching all of my cells.
Oh, okay.
So I had like this mental thing of like, I had to go walk.
Shake it up.
I had to go shake it up, yeah. But I think I was very fortunate kind of going through it in terms of side effects. I think I handled them quite well, continued to ride. I might have been at the back of the group on my Saturday rides with the Southenders, but I was still out there riding, still went to CrossFit, still went to the gym. And really, like, you know, my biggest thing going through all of my chemo and continuing to go through my chemo is that it doesn't stop me doing the things that I love. Because I think that's where I would start to struggle.
Right.
Is if I couldn't get on my bike, or I couldn't go to the gym, or I couldn't go outside or do the things that I love doing. I think that's where, like, I can see how that would really hurt people mentally, where it would kind of like make them down.
Yeah, you get real mad at cancer at that point. Right now, you're upset at it, but
I call it the pesky cells. Like, we need to get rid of these pesky cells.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think my perception, and maybe your perception of cancer too, like with both of our dads having pancreatic cancer, is that, and people that I've seen in my family, is people are sick. And I think that's what surprises everybody, is that apart from my hair's pretty short right now because it's still growing back, like, I just look like any other regular person. And the fact I go to CrossFit, and the fact I go to the gym, and the fact that I ride my bike the way that I do, like, I don't think people think that's possible when you have a cancer diagnosis or you're on active treatment.
Yeah.
And it really is. And I think, like, one of my biggest learns is, like, people's perceptions need to change about what it is, because people are getting diagnosed at a younger and younger age. And that percentage is going up and up consistently. So I think, like, younger people who are fit and active who are getting this, like, I don't always know if the medical profession knows how to deal with them. And that's when I've asked my doctors certain questions, like, we don't know.
Okay. That's exactly where I wanted to go with my next question, because I'm envisioning you going to your doctor and saying, or your oncologist, and saying, hey, I'm wanting to ride East Texas Showdown. It's 400 miles. I'm not going to sleep, or whatever. It's one thing to go to the gym. It's one thing to go on a 20-mile bike ride, but we're talking about a serious endurance effort that depletes your body. I mean, you have to use a lot of your resources that your body, I would think, is like using to fight cancer. What was your doctor's response to that?
I think initially, so when I first met my doctor, I told her I just finished a 400-mile bike race. I told her I worked out, and she goes, this is the only time I'm going to tell you, don't stop doing what you're doing. So I was like, okay. And she had said that she'd had somebody that was a runner who had been going through what I was going through, and she was training for the BCS marathon, and then she ended up doing the BCS half marathon because of, like, fatigue through training and stuff like that. And then I think, like, kind of as we went through my treatment and I continued to work out and I had minimal side effects, I think, I can't speak for her. Like, that's probably maybe a better question for Dr. Fleener. But I think she came to realize that I wasn't going to stop. And I was tolerating, like, kind of the side effects of the treatment really well. And then when I said, hey, I signed up for the East Texas Showdown and I was going to race 400 miles, she was okay with it. She cleared me to ride it or, take part in the event. What we did, our only concern was me getting dehydrated because the chemotherapy is really hard on your kidneys and your liver from toxicity. So she didn't want me to get dehydrated and then end up in the hospital. So we kind of tweaked my medicine a little bit as we kind of was coming into the race. So I would have it for 2 weeks and then I would have a week off. So what we did was when I finished my medicine, rather than me starting on the Sunday when I was supposed to start, I started on the day after the 400-mile event to make sure that I didn't get dehydrated.
The day after.
Yeah,
oh
on
gosh.
the Sunday. So we finished on Saturday, right? I finished Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
So Sunday night, I started my chemotherapy again. So we took a couple of days off, extra from my break of what I normally would. Not because I couldn't take my chemo pills riding my bike, because I'd taken my chemo pills through all of my training riding my bike. We called it chemo doping. But just simply because of the stress that I was going to put my body through and the potential for like dehydration.
Okay.
We took a couple of extra days before I went back onto my pills. So yeah, as soon as I was hydrated on the Sunday, we started popping those chemo pills again.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Was there any moment of pause or hesitation for you personally to do East Texas Showdown this year, or were you like, no, I'm doing it?
No, I was doing it. Sometimes I'm a little stubborn. I don't like to be beaten. So really for me, it's, it's my way of saying, sorry,
Fuck
Mom.
cancer.
Sorry, Mom. Fuck you, cancer.
Sorry, Mom.
Like I'm not going to let it dictate what I can and cannot do. Right. Like, I'm going to keep doing one of the things that I love doing. I'm going to keep riding my bike, like I said, going to the gym, right? And I'm not going to let it take over. It's just a part of life. It's not the whole life. It's a part of life.
Yeah.
It's like somebody having diabetes, right? Like type 1 diabetes, or somebody who's got lupus, or somebody who's got, rheumatoid arthritis, or somebody that's got HIV, right? Like all of those things are chronic, lifelong illnesses. And you either choose to, let that define your life, or you say, hey, this is just part of my life. I'm still going to do all the things that I love to do. But, just make sure that you listen to your body. And I felt great. If I didn't feel good, we wouldn't have done it, right? If I was having major side effects, then we wouldn't have done it. I did have side effects. I had no skin on my hands and feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Which is unusual. Like that's attributed to the chemo, you think?
It was a side effect of the chemotherapy. 2 weeks before the East Texas Showdown, I lost the sole of my left foot. And then a week before the East Texas Showdown, I lost the skin on my right foot on the soles of my feet.
Oh, no.
But, I had cream. I put the cream on. I made sure I wore a really good pair of socks. So I actually wore waterproof socks for the whole entire event because I didn't want to get wet socks. Even if I had wool socks on, when, my skin on my feet was very tender. And then the same with my hands. I'd lost my fingerprints. I lost the skin on my hands. So my hands were super sore. But on my bike, like I had some redshift grips on there. So I had like lots of different hand positions along with an aero bar. So I was able to move them around quite a bit, and they didn't bother me too much.
Yeah. Well, we haven't mentioned it yet, but you came in second. Technically, you were like a bike length ahead of Maegan, but y'all basically shared.
We came in together.
Y'all basically came in together. But you did. Let's see. Do you know your time? I have it written down here somewhere.
I don't. My spot has some issues. Apparently, I need a new one.
Okay. I got it.
So I think it's like 42 hours or something. It was like 6 hours slower than last year. So I was not happy about that.
One day, 19 hours, 4 minutes. Last year, you came in second place. So last year, Hannah Simon won, and you came in second place to her with 1 day, 13 hours, and 46 minutes. So six hours.
Yeah.
Took you 6 hours longer this year. Annabelle, for the record, won this year. Yeah, so you were disappointed in that time. I was going to ask you, like, what were your goals going into this? I mean,
so my goals was, the logical goal was to finish based off, being on chemotherapy, not knowing how my body was going to react. And, my chemo pills definitely gave me some like fatigue. So my ultimate goal was to finish. And we was nervous about finishing because it seemed like half the world knew at this point what we was doing. Because it had been on KBTX. We was doing a fundraiser for it. The whole cancer clinic knew what I was doing, friends, family. So both me and Maegan was like, we felt this huge pressure just to finish.
Yeah.
So like going into the event, I was like, we've just got to finish. Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes me. I just don't want to be dead last. and I just need to finish. But then, you know, when you start riding and you get into it, you know, the goal was still not to come last, and the goal was still to finish. I just didn't know like how, like, I think we came in like overall 10th. So that was way higher up in position than I ever anticipated. So then I was like, okay, I want to finish within 40 hours. And then that didn't happen, and we got to 42 hours, I think it was. So like I was really happy when we crossed the finish line that we was in like the top 10, or we was like 10th overall, and like joint second female. But then I was like disappointed at the same time that I was 6 hours slower. So it's taken me a little while to shake that off.
Why can't you give yourself a break? I mean, you are on chemo, isn't that? I mean, not to use it as an excuse, but that is a valid reason. Don't you think? It is a
valid reason. Yes, it is a valid reason.
But
I think it's just because I know
that was more of like the fuck
better.
you to cancer. Like you didn't like you wanted to like fuck you cancer. I'm still gonna show you that I can be just as fast as I was. Is that what?
Maybe. I don't know. I think it's more my pride. And I know most people like most people think people are crazy just for doing 400 miles. Most people, including people that do like ultra events, think it's crazy you do it when you've got cancer and going through active treatment. But I have like this, I always get this internal embarrassment, like if I don't do well.
Yeah.
And it's not that anybody puts that pressure on me. I think it's just how I'm wired, and I think it's because I'm competitive. The older I get, the more I get more competitive with myself than other people.
Okay. Maturing a little.
I think it's maturity. Yeah. My nieces are very competitive, and it's very outwardly spoken or kind of demonstrated when they lose, which is how I used to be when I was a kid, like throw a tantrum if I lost. Like I was the sorest loser in the world. But I think as I've got older, the competition is, I'm still as competitive, but I don't think I always necessarily make it about other people. I think I make it more about me. So. Right.
How much harder was 2025 ETS versus 2024 ETS? Do you? I mean, it was a while ago.
Yeah. No. I remember quite well. Like 2024, I still had stuff in that. I feel like I underpaced myself a little bit in 2024 because I came in and I felt really good, and like literally I took one day off and the next day I went to the gym. And I went to the gym like I just been out on like a Saturday ride.
Yeah. So you had a few more matches left.
I had some matches left, so I knew that I'd underpaced it a little bit. This year, I felt really good until 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. I felt great going through the night.
So it's basically 24 hours into
24 hours in. My body started getting really fatigued, but my mind didn't. So I think when your body's fine, but your mind gets fatigued or tired, that's when people quit.
Yeah.
So from a mental standpoint, I was completely plugged in and I felt great from a mental standpoint, but I definitely had some fatigue in the body. So Saturday, getting back to the bullet grill was an effort. But once the sun went down, like I felt better riding through the night than I did during the days.
Yeah. So. Did you and Maegan intend to ride together the whole time?
No, we did not. We'd had a conversation prior to the ETS, and I said, hey, I think you're going to be faster than me because of, I don't think I'm going to be able to keep up with the pace. Like, I'm just going to have to ride my own ride based off how I fail. And then on like day one, we was like kind of like, we was always like pretty close by each other. Like either she was a little bit ahead of me or I was a little bit ahead of her. And then kind of as it got into the night, we realized that, hey, we're like kind of pacing the same. So we started riding together. I know from experience, like riding through the night without sleep is one of the hardest things you'll ever do when you're bikepacking. bikepack racing or ultra racing. It's where it makes or break people, and that's where you can like really pick up places on an event. So we was riding through the night, and it's Maegan's first time without sleeping and going through the night. And I just kept telling her, just get to daybreak, Maegan, get to daybreak. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And she was like, leave me. And I was like,
Leave
no.
me.
I was like, this is your first bikepacking event. And I was like, this is the hardest part of the ride. This is the hardest part from like 3, 4 a.m. until that sun comes up. So I said, hey, just keep riding. And I was like telling her jokes. I was singing. And she was, it's hard. It really is. I mean, you've been there, right? Everything, your eyes are falling asleep, but you're still riding your bike.
You're hallucinating.
It's
and then
it's
just
super
like
hard.
the mental side of it gets hard.
The mental side of it gets hard. And I'm sure she hated me because I was telling her like dad jokes and I was singing and I was trying to keep her engaged. And then we got into this like grass, I don't know, there's grass, not grasshoppers, crickets. There was these swarms of crickets everywhere, like literally. No, there was June bugs.
Oh, June bugs.
June bugs.
Yeah.
Everywhere. There was like swarms of them.
Oh,
there was in our jerseys. There was in our hair. And because at first I thought it was being rained on because there was like so many of them. And we would go through these swarms and then there would be nothing for a couple of miles and then there would be these swarms. So that kind of made it a little bit more interesting as we was kind of getting towards daybreak. But we was tracking on a very similar pace. So once it got to daybreak, like she was good to go again. And then on day 2, when it came to like 8 a.m., like I was really happy that we had the same pace pretty much. We trained together. So, which really helped. But that was really helpful for me on day 2 too, was just like we had other people that was around us too riding. That was all kind of the same pace. So it actually made for a really kind of enjoyable second day because typically I've always ridden by myself. But this time, like we had Emily and I think it was Aaron, the single speed guy that came like second.
Okay.
And there was another guy and I can't remember his name right off the top of my head right now, but we kind of all found each other at Whataburger and we rode through the night, partway through the night. Like there was kind of like a small group of us.
Yeah.
Nobody was drafting off anybody, just to be clear, in case anyone was wondering. But it was, and I said to them, I was like, man, this is the best like through the night I've ever done. I was like, because I've always ridden by myself.
Right.
So like everybody was chatting and like it really like it was really cool. So that's how we got to be like really good friend, like not really good friends, but it was like how we got really friendly with those two guys and Emily was because we'd all kind of shared like an experience through the night where everybody was like fatigued.
That'll bound you together.
Bound us together, yeah. But I only hallucinated one time, and that was I thought I saw a spaceship through the trees, and it really did look like a spaceship the way it was lit up. And there was like these 2 legs, and then the light was on the top, but the 2 legs was tree trunks. But you couldn't see that looking through the trees.
Right.
So I was like, Maegan, there's a spaceship. And she was like, what? And then I was like, oh, the trees. She goes, Kerry, you were more surprised it's trees and not a spaceship. She goes, there's something wrong with that. And I was like, yeah, I know. But it was good. Like I said, it was Maegan's first time. And, I felt, she felt a little bit of responsibility to me with me being on chemotherapy and kind of going through what I was going through. And then I felt a little bit of responsibility to her because it was her first time. And I kind of helped talk her into it along with, Kim, who also talked her into it. But it was good. Like I said, we trained together. So we was very like kind of equally paced. So it was I think it helped both of us a little bit, just having people to ride with, which typically hasn't been the case for me when I've done like an ultra event. I've always been solo from the first 10 miles. Like typically I've ridden by myself for the whole duration of the event. This year, for whatever reason, it was like there was lots of different people that, we kind of rode with for a little bit of time, or we passed at a gas station or like just a stop where, it seemed a little bit more like the field was a little closer this year than it was last year.
And yeah, we had a little bit more people this year too. So maybe having like more people in the field, there's just more, which just helps to break up the monotony and like get you out of your own head and get to chat and make friends. And
and I think I think it also like took my mind off like trying to get out of the race mode and just get into just compete, like just be there, be a participant, but not, be so hyper focused on like a time and finishing. Even though I had one of those in mind, I think it kind of helped distract me from that a little bit.
Did you bring a sleep kit?
No.
Did you take any naps or anything? So how much stoppage time did you have? Do you know?
Yeah, we had, I think it was 6 or 7 hours of stoppage time.
That's what Follow My Challenge was showing. I think about 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we took, we stopped in a small town, and I don't remember where it was. It was a Commerce Bank or something. And I was like really, really tired at that point. Maegan needed to go get some water and use the bathroom and stuff. So I stayed at the bank and just laid on the concrete path. And it was like my whole entire body just needed to stretch out.
it feels so good.
And it felt so good. But I was freezing cold laid on that concrete. And then I closed my eyes while she went to go get water and at the gas station. But I kept thinking I could hear bikes going past. So every time I was like, oh my God, somebody's passing us. So I literally laid there for like 5 minutes and then got up. And then we went on our merry way.
So is that the only like rest you had the whole time?
Pretty much, other than like stopping for food, like at the Subway or the Whataburger. But most of the time when we was at the gas stations, it was like grab and go. It was like fill up your water, grab your snacks, use the restroom, but don't loiter at the gas stations because you can lose a lot of time. Time goes so quick when you get off the bike. You go in, you use the restroom, you grab your water, you grab some snacks. Well, that's like 15 minutes. So then you start chit-chatting or like you start dithering around. You can lose 30 minutes, 45 minutes just on one stop.
Right.
So I always have a rule when we're at a gas station. I set a timer on my phone.
Yeah.
So as soon as the timer goes off, I've got to be gone because otherwise you just lose too much time. And then if I'm stopping to like really refuel properly, like at Whataburger, like I try and make it no longer than like a 30-minute stop or a 45-minute stop at most to like get hot food in. And like maybe if you need to like take care of like, like changing your shorts out if you've taken spare shorts, which is what I did this year, learning from last year with all the rain and all the grit.
Smart.
I was much smarter this year. I took a spare pair of shorts in case I got too much grit in my pants.
Shorts and brake pads.
I didn't take brake pads.
Did you have metal brake pads?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had them changed out like 2 weeks before the event.
Listen to Kerry, everybody. Bring metal brake pads when you ride East Texas Showdown. It's rained 4 out of the 5 years. And I lent my bike to a guy from the UK that actually came to ride.
Okay.
So I let him borrow my Panorama. Yep. And whenever I got it back, the brake pads there were no brake pads left.
So I'll tell you about having metal brake pads. I did the East Texas Showdown last year, which was a lot of rain.
Yeah, even more rain.
I rode that bike with those brake pads on until 2 weeks before the East Texas Showdown this year.
Oh, really?
I did.
Yeah, so they really last.
They last.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Yeah, that's a good way to put it in perspective. What are some of your highlights from the race this year?
Some of my highlights, I think one of my highlights was kind of like, typically I always train by myself for something like this. So having a training partner with Maegan was like a highlight because, I wasn't always motivated every Saturday to go out and ride, especially if like I was a little fatigued from treatment or, like those things build up over time, right? Because essentially I've been on active treatment with the East Texas Showdown for like 10 months. So that's a lot of medicine in your body. So when I was like a little, like really not that motivated, having somebody to ride with definitely helped. I think we ran into John Flynn on the ride. So that was cool because he's from Bryan College Station. So he was recovering from, I think, shoulder surgery, maybe
shoulder.
rotator cuff surgery, and then he was supposed to do the lowdown, and then he ended up changing and doing the slowdown.
Awesome.
So we got to ride with him a little bit.
So y'all caught him on the second leg?
Yeah, actually going out.
Oh, going out.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So we caught him there. So that was cool because we know John. So that was good to have like some chit chat and stuff. But then I really think like the highlight was riding through the night with Emily and then the two guys. Aaron, I think it's Aaron, one of them, and I can't remember the other guy's name.
I wonder if it's Joey Acuff.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
No. As soon as I see his name, I'll remember it. But we was all riding through the night together, and it was just good because, like I said, typically those things I always ride by myself. So to have like people around, like, and everybody was chatting about just regular, like just random stuff. Like it wasn't even about biking. It was just like chit chat. There's like no real context to it at times. But like just seeing 5 of us like going through the forest with these lights and, everybody's at like different spots and there's just like lights lighting up the forest everywhere. It was really, really cool. And then I think kind of just the experience of like, doing the event for a purpose. And that was one of Maegan's things too, was like doing it for a purpose. Because she also had some personal reasons for why she wanted to do it that I won't go into. So we kind of both got really invested in like the fundraising side of it and then actually doing it for something bigger than just going out there to ride or race your bike. Providing financial support to people that can't afford, a test because, they don't have the money for the copay or, they don't have insurance or whatever that might be. I came to realize real quickly that I was fortunate that I was able to work all the way through, but not everybody's that fortunate.
Yeah.
And, there's not the best kind of resources, I don't think, in the US for when you have something like this. It's, health insurance is very expensive and, I don't know like how much support is out there for people when they can't work, when they go through like a cancer diagnosis, like, I think sick pay or sick time here is not as generous as it is in the UK.
Oh, yeah. I've never lived in the UK, but our healthcare is a fucking mess.
So, you could be financially stable and then all of a sudden you can't work and you've got a mortgage to pay, you've got bills to pay, or you've got kids and, you've got a $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 deductible plus all of your copays, like, that adds up over time, especially if you're not able to work or you're out of funds or you don't have like long-term disability or short-term disability. Like going through a cancer diagnosis is stressful enough, let alone not being able to get your medicine or get a scan, or you've got to delay it because you're $200 short or you whatever. So I think, kind of doing that and then finding out on the Tuesday after the event that, $200 went to somebody to get a PET scan that covered kind of their copay so they didn't have to cancel or wait. Like that, I text Maegan and Kim and said, hey, the first person's already got some of the funds that we raised so that they don't have to like wait for this PET scan.
Yeah.
It kind of like, I guess it kind of just made it, like we knew it would be worthwhile, but like it was like, man, we just like really made a difference. Like we just made a difference to somebody that we're never going to meet. Right. And how cool is that?
Oh, it's super cool. I was going to bring this up too, but I believe you started this nonprofit in. No,
I did not. So it was started by 3 people. It was started by Erin Fleener, or Dr. Fleener, who's my oncologist at the cancer clinic in Bryan. It was also started with a guy named Craig, Dr. Craig. Don't remember his last name, begins with a B. And I believe he was part of Brazos Hospice for a period of time. And then another lady that kind of came up with the idea of starting BCS Fights Cancer to help people financially when they get a cancer diagnosis to get their treatment or get their scans or get their tests or whatever is needed. And then I just happened to mention that, hey, I'm doing this 400-mile endurance event, this ultra bikepacking event. And I said, something keeps telling me like I should do it for a reason. I'll do it for a cause. So when I went for one of my appointments, I asked my oncology nurse, Pam, I said, hey, if I was to do it for charity, like who do you think I should do it for? Like what would be a worthy cause? And she was like, oh, there's this new charity being set up called BCS Fights Cancer. Like, would you do it for that? It's not just for breast cancer, it's for all cancers. And I was like, absolutely. I was like, there's so much support out there for like certain types of cancers, but other cancers, there's not as much support out there. So I said, I'd rather do it for anybody that has like cancer. So that's how it came to be BCS Fights Cancer. It just happened to be that the event and the fundraising was a little bit ahead of schedule of when they did their hard launch.
Okay.
And got a website up and going.
You were in the very early stages of this, but you didn't start it, but you were just on the ground floor very early on.
Very early on, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think last week they just had their first official launch. So we was a little bit ahead of schedule, which was fine. I think it helped bring awareness to the nonprofit before it even got started. And then BCS...
Yeah, I was going to say that you started them with a little bit of cash in their piggy bank before they even jumped out.
Yeah, a little bit. And, then KBTX picked up the story, which was really cool. So we was able to get it on the local news channel. So I think, that helped spread the word a little bit. And now they've officially launched. So hopefully, they have some public awareness right out of the gate.
Yeah, and you raised over $15,000 between you and Maegan, right?
$15,800 in like 2.5 weeks.
And I assume y'all are still accepting donations, so I was going to link to your donation page, yeah?
So we closed the donation page down on April 11th, but now the website for BCS Fights Cancer is live. There is a direct donation link now to their charity, so we can definitely put that link on the page.
Okay.
Yeah,
you hit your goal. So your goal was 15,000, and you beat it and got a little extra.
Yeah. So the goal initially was 5, and then we got there. It got there really quickly, and then Maegan wanted to get involved on the fundraising too. So I put my goal up to 10. She put hers up to 5, and then collectively we got to the 15,800. So on the Sunday after the East Texas Showdown, or the Sunday when the East Texas Showdown event was finishing, is when we actually hit the 15,000 mark, thanks to Patrick Farnsworth and the East Texas Showdown event.
Yes. Well, I looked at it because after I got done with East Texas Showdown, I went back and watched all the KBTX because I was running the event, and they did our local news did a 3-part coverage of you and what you were doing, and also the charity. And so I went and looked. I was like, okay, where are they at? And you were, I think, $167 away from hitting your goal. And so I was like, oh, I got that, for sure. So I made, it was actually pretty good timing. I was hoping they might mention it on the news. Not necessarily that I did it, but just that.
We'd hit the goal.
Because I got you to your goal, I think, 2 hours before the 9 p.m. or the 10 p.m. news thing came out. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But you got the goal. And
yeah, we got there on the Sunday. And then what was crazy was the next week, money just donations just kept trickling in, and it got us to 15,800. So I didn't want to leave the page open too long because I knew the website was going to be up and running, fairly quickly after the event. But like I said, it launched last week, I believe. So that's up and running. They have a direct donation page there now where you click on it, and you can just make the donations now directly off their fundraising page, which is good for me because that was my big thing, was I'll do the fundraiser, but I do not want to touch any part of any money, which was really cool of the Just Giving page that we used, because they are a listed charitable kind of corporation. You was able to put in the charity with the charity number, and then all funds went directly to them and their bank account. So it never touched any of the fundraisers, which was one of my criterias of actually doing it, was I didn't want to handle anything. It just
go to you.
My job was to raise awareness and ride my bike. Not handling any donations. Yeah. So it was really cool that it was able to go directly to them. So Craig was able to work with Just Giving to get those funds released into their account. But now they have the webpage up and running. That makes me much happier because now everything can get funneled directly to the fundraising page.
Yeah. No, super cool. All right. So wrapping up East Texas Showdown, I wanted to talk to you about the Death Loop, or as we're now calling it, the Death Star, because I changed it for 2025.
Okay.
How were you feeling whenever you came in? So for people who don't know, all of the Texas Showdown Series races, at least for the Showdown race, you do a big loop. You know, I mean, in this case, it's like 325 miles. And then you come back to the start-finish line and you have to keep going. And in this case, it's like 68 miles. Whenever the reroute, because we had to reroute due to flood damage, but whenever the route is the way it's supposed to be, it'll be 69 miles for anybody who cares. Meme numbers. But I don't think I've ever seen you so broken. I don't know. I don't like, you looked like you were really in the hurt locker whenever you came in before you started the Death Star. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I was pretty tired when we came in. I mean, I'd had a rough day. Like I said, at 8 a.m. in the morning, like I had a lot of fatigue, like in my body. But mentally, like I was still like plugged in.
Yeah.
And that's why I was able, I think, to work through the fatigue that I had. But I was really, really tired at that point. I think coming in, one thing that I know, and I would encourage anybody that's doing the East Texas Showdown in the future, is don't go to bed when you come in at the start-finish line at the Bullet Grill. Like, refuel, get yourself together, but get back out there. Because there's nothing worse than riding 325 miles, getting back into your home comforts or taking a shower, going to sleep, and then you got to get up the next day and do another 68 miles. You could have already been done.
Right.
So I think for me, like, I came in, I had some hot food, I rehydrated, I changed my kit, so I put some clean kit on. I went to the bathroom, like, washed my face. And then by the time we went back out, I felt great.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
It really rejuvenated you?
I kind of like regrouped myself. But it's what I was saying on those, kind of one of those video snapshots that we had was like, don't stop. We're going to ride through the night, because I knew if I went to bed, I wasn't going out and doing 68 miles the next day. Like, I'm done. Like, I know I'm going to regret it when I get home, but I'm also going to be done. And, I think that's what people may find hard, is that you get to the finish line and there's that Death Star loop to do, and it's another 68 miles. And if you're coming in on a night, that's really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
But once you get back out there, like, you're back in it. Like, you've got to get away from the people, get away from where your camper is or your car or your friends and family. That's the comfort zone, right?
Right.
So if you get into that comfort zone, you ain't coming back out again, or it's going to be really hard. Like, just get yourself together, get refueled, do what you need to do, but then get out there and just get it done.
Yeah. I really love the Death Star, Death Loop aspect of these events, because, I mean, in the scale of like ultra bike pack racing, these are more entry level events, are a little bit more accessible. And so I was like, how can I spice it up a little bit? How can I, make it just a little bit more challenging? And this is just a little mental fuckery, right? Like, that's
exactly
all it is mental fuckery. Yeah. And as a participant, I'm curious, like, how much of a challenge was that to, like, oh, everything's here, all my food, my comforts, my husband, everything is right here. How hard is it to motivate yourself to stay in race mode, while you're transitioning from, the first loop of the race to going on the Death Star?
I think this time it wasn't that hard, because we had this fear of not finishing when everybody knew and it was going on the TV what we was doing. Yeah. So that was enough motivation to get us back out there. Yeah. But the previous year, if you remember, I never stopped.
I don't remember that.
So
yeah, you just kept going.
The previous year, I rode like I was going to come into the Bullet Grill car park, and then I changed my mind and went straight back out. Oh. And so I actually think last year was harder than this year, because last year I didn't stop. But also, part of my poor planning last year was on the Death Loop, there was no water. And I went out on that 68-mile Death Loop last year with one bottle of water. And I was like, oh, there's going to be a church. Oh, there's going to be like a graveyard where there's some water, right? And there was nothing.
What about that gas station in Cold Spring?
I didn't want to get off route because it was so close to the finish.
Yeah.
So I managed to find this guy in a truck who was like working on this community center. And I was like, hey, do you have any water? And he's like, where did you come from? And I was like, oh, there's like a lot of us out here. So I just found this random guy who was working on this community center, like doing like contractor work. And he had a case of water in the back of his truck. And he gave me a bunch of bottles of water to fill up my water bottles. But I actually think last year's Death Loop was harder than this year's Death Star. But I think that was really because we was motivated, that we wanted to finish because we knew how many people was like kind of following along.
What about in terms of ride quality? I'm curious to get your perspective. You know, we had some complaints, mostly safety concerns of the original Death Loop on that one stretch, like
going
towards
on the
end.
Yeah, the FM road. Yeah.
Which is fair. I mean, we had a couple like close encounters, and so safety is like super important. That's like number one. And it took me forever to like, I can't even tell you how much time I spent trying to figure out, because in Texas there's so much private land. It's like where can we ride safely? And that's why I made it a star, and it keeps you in the Sam Houston National Forest. But it took a long time to kind of like break my brain and be like, okay, it doesn't have to be a perfect loop. I can do this like weird star thing, and you might cross some other riders out there, and it could be fun.
You did cross other riders. At one part, I thought we was going in loops because we kept seeing the same signposts over and over again. And I was like, I swear we've been down this road. But it was that star. Like, we was going along the same property lines, just on the different sides.
Right.
But they had the signs out on both sides of the route. So every time we come to a corner, I'm like, we just passed this sign. But we didn't. We'd passed it on the other side. So last year, I think this year the route was more enjoyable with the Death Star. Last year, that road coming in, I think I was quite fortunate. Like, there wasn't a lot of traffic that I encountered coming in on that road. But when you've got riders that are fatigued, especially if they've ridden through the night, you know, you're not always as sharp or as aware as maybe you would be if you had slept. I didn't have any close encounters, but I think this year's route was a lot better in terms of like doing the star, because it was a bit of a mind mess when you pass in the same riders and the same signposts, even though you're at different locations. But on a night, like, you know, you can get a little disoriented in the forest.
Yeah.
So,
I like that about it. I was thinking about that. I mean, when I created, I'm like, this is going to create a little bit of a navigational challenge and a little bit of mental fuckery, because you're tired at that point, you know, and you're like, okay, what is going on here? So I think it adds a little, you know, you really got to be clued in if you're riding it now. And so I'm happy to hear that, you know. I don't want it to be too easy.
No. And I could see how people would get lost on the Death Star if they don't have like the navigation kind of set up on the GPS devices properly. Because I use an ETS, so all you get is a purple line. It doesn't tell you the direction.
Oh, okay.
But I had it backed up on Ride with GPS on my phone. I had it backed up on my Garmin. So I was able to like go back and look and say, okay, which way is the line, the directional line going? Because on my ETREX, it just shows a purple line, and I just follow a purple line.
Right.
So when you're doing this star configuration, especially when the points come together, like there's no direction which way I should go. So luckily I had it backed up in two different places, which I always do. But I do think that it was more enjoyable, and I think it was a better route than the previous year.
Good. And also pro tip about, anyone going to go do the showdown at East Texas, pay attention to your navigation, have backups, make sure you can, because I know people got a little confused. I don't think anyone got lost. I think there might have been a couple like, wrong way, and then have to turn around. But you're going to have to, have your wits about you a little bit on that last little section.
The more tired you get, the more fatigue you get, the harder it becomes to like just even comprehend the simplest of tasks.
Right.
So,
bikepacking math gets hard. Bikepacking navigation gets hard. Yeah.
Don't make it any more difficult than it's already going to be at 3 a.m. in the morning when you're trying to figure out which direction you're going or which way do you take a left or a right at this junction? Because, you do have that crossover of route. Like, just, I always say you can never back up your navigation enough because you just don't know when you're going to need it.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you more proud of, your 2025 East Texas Showdown or your 2024 East Texas Showdown?
I mean, it has to be 2025. Just simply because, we did something that most people wouldn't think is possible or people would do,
Right.
Going through chemotherapy. But I think I was proud mostly of as bringing awareness, to really what my goal ultimately, and I don't really know how to do this, but is how do you change the perception of what cancer is? It's life altering, but it doesn't have to be life defining. Because like I said earlier, more and more young people are getting diagnosed. People don't really know why. People that are young and fit. And I think this is something that is going to be more common in the future, is that, there's going to be young, fit people that are going to have cancer that still continue to compete. I found a website last week, and it's called Athletes with Cancer. And it's professional athletes and Olympic athletes that have still continued to compete while they've gone through cancer treatment or have cancer. And I was like, oh man, I didn't even know that was a thing. But they've set up this Athletes with Cancer organization because there isn't a lot of support out there for people who are athletes and going through chemotherapy or going through a cancer diagnosis. So, I think, the more people that can be aware of it, and the more we can try and change people's perceptions of what it is. It's not somebody who's laid on the couch under a fleece blanket or, constantly asleep with a bald head or, in the bathroom, constantly throwing up or vomiting. You can look very healthy and you can live a very healthy, active lifestyle while you're still going through treatment. Treatments have come a long way since my dad and your dad had cancer, right? The way they manage it is different. And, some of the treatments now is they're looking at it as a chronic illness rather than, and they're going to manage it like a chronic illness in certain circumstances. But, I think, it's closer to home than I think any of us ever think. I'm the fittest and healthiest person in my family, and I'm the one carrying around cancer, right? Which is fine by me because I don't want anybody else to have it.
Wow.
So for me, it's not about why me. For me, the biggest question is how did it happen or why did it happen?
Yeah.
So that one, I can make sure that it never happens again, either to me or, I can help advise or inform somebody else of hey, these are the reasons why it happens, even when you live a healthy life and you have no genetic markers for it either. Maybe I'm just drew the short straw and, but everybody's life's got a story, right? And this is just part of my life story now.
Yeah. Doesn't define you, but just a part of your story right now.
Just a part of it.
And I think, to answer your question you brought up earlier, how do we change the perception? I think, we do it by doing, what you did. And hopefully this podcast and the awareness you raised through the Cancer Foundation and on KBTX and the people in your lives, you're an example of how you can live your life alternatively to what people might have in their mind about what you can do with cancer, right? And you just mentioned there's a whole website of Athletes with Cancer. And so, I mean, it's so impressive to me as a person who's never had cancer. And also I've never heard of anyone. I don't know of anyone. You're the only person I've ever heard of doing a ultra endurance bikepacking race while undergoing chemotherapy, know? And so, just getting this story out there, I mean, that's how we inspire people. And I think a lot of times in life, you inspired me to become a bike pack racer, right? Watching you take it on, watching some other people I know take it on, inspire me. It's oh, I ride bikes with those people. Maybe I can do that,
Anybody can do it.
And so, it's setting an example and giving people permission, because a lot of times we don't know what's possible until somebody else goes and shows us like what's possible. And so I think you're doing it.
Yep. Well, it's all the limits that's being put on us through our lives, right? Like if you think about kids before they go to school, they're free as a bee, right? They're creative, they're impulsive, they're, nothing is off limits, right? And then, we go to school and we get rules and regulations put on us and we get put into these boxes, right? And that's how most people live their life, right? Is through, hey, there's this defined set of rules and, I think people's, oh, don't do that, it's dangerous, right? Or what we talked about earlier, where people's fears get put onto you as an individual. Like when you're a kid, you're fearless, right? But as you get older, there's so many rules and don't do this, don't do that. Like people lose that natural instinct to like go be creative or go do fun things, or like things that, people necessarily might not think is doable. But as adults, like, we make our own decisions and we get to choose our own lives, or we listen to whatever people tell us is possible. And then we're only going to do the things that other people believe is possible, not what you believe is possible.
I love it.
So, I don't know.
Well said. I got something for you.
Oh, is it the
there was a little mix up with the awards. There was only one award that was missing in the entire batch, and it was the second place women's showdown. So
alrighty,
I finally got your trophy to you.
Thank you.
And you got a $125 gift certificate to Thompson Bikes.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I also threw some stickers.
Some stickers from my bike rack. Yeah.
Last question.
Yep.
What's next for you? Any other races?
Yeah, so we're doing 24 hours in the canyon at the end of May, which is a 24-hour mountain bike race in Paladera Canyon. That's actually for a cancer center out in New Mexico. They do it every year. I think it's in New Mexico. So I'm doing a 2-person team with Maegan. I will be on chemotherapy, so I'm like, hey, I'll do the beginning, I'll do the end, but I think you're going to need to like do the middle part.
Okay.
So we're kind of working out our race strategy for that, but we're going to go do that at the end of May. And then right now we are planning on doing the Edinburgh, London event, which is in August 2nd. It's 940 miles, I think it is. You basically ride from London to Edinburgh and then back down to London again. It's all on road, so a lot of like country roads. And it's part of the Audox series. So they do Paris, Brest, Paris every 4 years, and Edinburgh, London is every 4 years. So they do them 2 years apart from each other. It is an unsupported but supported event. So what that means is there's checkpoints. You go into the checkpoints and it's all supported at the checkpoints. Yeah, but in between the checkpoints, it's the unsupported kind of rules of traditional bikepacking, where it's done on an honor system and you can't get outside help, only what's available to everybody else. So it's going to be a little bit different. Definitely being supported and unsupported at the same time. I've never done that. I've always just done it unsupported. So that's August 2nd. So we'll be flying to the UK to go and participate in that.
That's awesome. I love that.
So I think, on this one, we'll kind of see how it goes. I'll still be on treatment. So, we'll see how well we fare with it.
All right.
But it is a long way and there's a lot of climbing, especially going up to Scotland.
Yeah.
But 940 miles on road versus 400 miles on gravel, I think it's
evenish.
It's evenish. Close enough.
Evenish.
So, but that's the goal.
Awesome. Well, Kerry, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I think, on a personal level, I'm rooting for you, and you've always been an inspiration to me. And I appreciate you coming out and throwing down at the East Texas Showdown. And I wish you well on the rest of your cancer journey, and I'm looking forward to you kicking it in the ass. And
me too.
In closing, fuck cancer.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patrick.
And now I'm going to go ride my bike. I'm going to go ride my damn bike.
Go ride your damn bike.
All right. Thanks, Kerry.
All right. Awesome.
Podcast over. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. And a major shout out goes to Kerry Snow. First of all, congratulations on your results at East Texas Showdown this year. Truly an impressive and inspirational effort. And we all wish you well as you continue your journey to kick cancer's ass. Well, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, there's been a little bit of a scarcity of podcasts lately, but I'm trying to turn that around. And I have a very exciting interview scheduled already with Shell Money, who just became the first person ever to complete the Arizona Trail 800 on a bike with coaster brakes. I'm really looking forward to that one, and I'm sure many of you are too. So be looking for that one to hit your podcasting feed very soon. And a quick reminder, a great way to support this show is by supporting the advertisers that support this show. So just a quick reminder, check out Farther Bag Co. And if you see anything you like, use their code BAGSORDEATH at checkout to get 15% off. And if you want to find out what the Central Texas Showdown is all about and come ride your damn bike with us in the Texas Hill Country, use the code BikesOrDeath at checkout for $20 off, and we'll see you in Texas. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. It is always a pleasure. Until next time, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke, stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes.